Hello and welcome to 18 WJTS Inform. Once again, we are honored to have with us State Senator Mark Messmer.
Great to be
Welcome.
here as always.
We are just so glad that you come in on Fridays.
Yep.
Now we're getting toward the end. Next week is your last week.
Yes, so Monday and Tuesday this week we finished up House bills in the Senate, and then Wednesday and Thursday we started the conference committee process, and that'll wrap up Wednesday next week. We'll be done and out on the 11th of March.
All right, just in time for the, I guess, the NCAA, right, to
Yes.
move in?
Yeah, I think
Okay.
the
the Big Ten, maybe.
Big Ten, the first few rounds I think start Wednesday evening, so we'll be done and out of there, I'm sure, before all of that crowd moves into town.
All right, well, let's talk about what has happened this week as we near the end.
Okay, well, we had 52 House bills that we did final voting on Monday and Tuesday. 4 of those were bills that I had sponsored, so good to see all of those cross the finish line with good, strong support. One was House Bill 1225, and that came from Representative McNamara, and she lives in Evansville. And she had the issue started from a local law enforcement officer who had pulled over to help a stranded motorist, and the law is you're supposed to, give some space around the law enforcement vehicle when you pass them, and somebody didn't and hit him and killed him. And I guess in that scenario, if it's a law enforcement officer, instead of it being a Class A misdemeanor, killing somebody in that scenario, it would elevate it to a level 6 felony. Or if law enforcement is behind you, their lights are on, and you don't, pull over to let them pass, and then somebody is killed because of refusing to pull over, that goes from a Class A misdemeanor to a level 6 felony as well. House Bill 1309, that was just some Indiana Department of Environmental Management cleanup stuff, very non-controversial. House Bill 1414 is the bill dealing with utility companies and trying to put a pause on any more closure announcements until there's a 21st Century Energy Task Force that's been meeting last year and this year to come up with our long-term energy policy criteria. And when they first announced it last year, a couple of power plants immediately, announced closures, trying to, get ahead of any rules that might be coming out of that. And when we passed that, it was, clearly communicated to the utility companies that, let this take effect and before you close any more plants, and they chose to ignore that. And so this bill says we really want you to hold off closing any more plants until we can come up with a long-term energy plan, because our baseline, power, is and will be for a long time based on coal-fired power plants. There's just no substitute. The wind doesn't blow in southern Indiana regularly enough. Sun doesn't shine at night. Battery technology isn't there to cover that. The renewables, and so we've got to have a long-term plan. This bill just basically, puts a pause on any of those until next year. We can take action on the task force recommendations. And then House Bill 1008 deals with streamlining people who move here from out of state, streamlining the process if they've got an occupational license of any kind, streamlines that process of getting them relicensed in Indiana.
So they can start work right away.
Yep. Some of the bigger issues that we passed, House Bill 1002, is the decoupling of teacher pay from student test scores. Probably one of the more controversial pieces of the teacher evaluations we passed back in 2011. And all the rest of the criteria remain in place, but the linkage of the I-STEP, or now the I-LEARN, and that as part of their evaluation is done and gone. So that bill passed the House, passed the Senate unchanged, is off to the governor.
And when will that become?
That'll probably take effect July 1.
Okay.
So I don't think there was any emergency connection to that one. And then House Bill 1004 is one of our healthcare cost transparency measures. It includes a provision that hospitals will start to aggregate cost data, so you can see, and the state will accumulate that information, have it available for every hospital across the state on average costs for each specific medical procedure they do. It'll put an end to surprise billing, and we really have to, hopefully the federal government works on that hand in hand as well. But when you go to a hospital, you don't get for an emergency procedure, they would not be allowed to bill out of network, and before you go for an elective procedure, the hospital has to disclose in advance, what's covered in network, under your insurance, what's out of network, and what the costs of all those procedures will be, a good faith estimate in advance. And then if you're a company that is a self-insured employer, there's currently a provision in law that insurance companies can't disclose, what the medical costs are that you're paying for, which seems crazy, but so if I'm a self-employed, self-insurance or whatever, self-insured health insurance plan at my company, I should be able to, ask the insurance company, what the costs are. You charged me $100,000 last year for my employees' health care plans. What were my costs? And currently, I don't think they're currently required to, so they just don't. They refuse to, and that's called a gag clause. And House Bill 1004 would end that prohibition and actually would require them to disclose it. So, lets you know what you're paying for, and what then you can know what better to do to help lower your costs. And then House Bill 1042 is the pharmacy benefit manager issue. We had a Senate bill, the first half dealt with that same issue, and really trying to get transparency when they get hired by an insurance company or a group plan to bulk purchase, from pharmaceutical companies, and then when they do the bulk purchasing and the discounts, what are they doing with the discounts? How much are they keeping? How much is getting passed on to the plans? Because currently, very few of them pass any of those discounts on. So that wouldn't be a primarily transparency issue, but require them to be licensed in Indiana, and if they don't disclose the data, then they could lose their license to operate in the state.
And then you had a good week.
I had
two of your bills.
Yes, two of my Senate bills came back from the House with some slight changes. Really, both of them had improvements to the bills. One was my deposition of child sex abuse victims, send it to the House, and we tried to, when we started, we tried to take the current statutes on child depositions and kind of cut and paste and tweak it and make it fit our intentions of just not having unrestricted access to a child sex abuse victim by the defense attorneys. And the House took what we did and said, it wasn't very, it was kind of clunky trying to edit existing code sections. And so they said, we're just going to delete that section, take what you're wanting to do, and then write a new section to where the process flowed well. But at the end of the day, gives judges oversight on if a deposition is needed for some reason, if they can't get the charges determined by the victim, for the person to prepare defense adequately enough, a judge could grant a deposition with criteria on what has to be done to protect that child in that deposition process. Passed unanimously when it came back, so very proud of that. And then House Bill 409 will eliminate the work permit process for minors who want to work. Currently they have to go to their guidance counselor at their school, get a permit, take it to their employer, before they can actually get paid. And this will get rid of that work permit process and have an online registry system with the Department of Labor for people who want to employ minors, because they're ultimately the person who monitors workplace hours and days a week and time of day. They're the ones that enforce it, monitor it, and so the registry will go to them. So they'll know who has minors that are employed, and for them, follow-up will be easier. And then a year from now, the process will stay in place for a year while the Department of Labor is setting up that online registry system, and it'll be done at no cost to the employers. And the cost to set it up was going to be relatively low, and they've got several $1 million of money in their system that they've gotten from fines from employees who over time have gotten penalized for different parts of record keeping or whatever, work, having minors work too long. So they've got plenty of money on hand to pay for it. I don't expect to have any trouble with the governor signing that one. And that one passed, I think, 41-3. So it did have a couple of no votes, but strong support, and glad to see that one done as well.
Well, you know, it's not too bad to have a couple of no votes.
Yeah, that
You
didn't
know,
hurt.
Yeah. So things are going really smoothly.
Yep.
Knock wood. You got 3 more days.
3 more days, and all of the big issues that have some adjusting to do. I mean, I feel pretty confident all of our agenda items will get done. You know, and the medical cost issues will be the biggest ones. The teens, tobacco and vaping age. I mean, details to work out with the House on penalties for, you know, non-compliance by, you know, retailers, and just the minor details that the House and Senate versions were pretty close. Those will all get worked out as well.
And that's probably pretty simple. That's going to go through pretty easily.
It should be, yeah.
All right. Well, thank you very much for coming in.
Great
We'll
to be here as
next
always.
week to kind of wrap up.
We'll do a session recap next
and then,
week.
but we may do 2 shows because there's so much to talk about.
A lot of times there's plenty to discuss. So.
All right. Well, thank you very much for coming in
Absolutely.
once again.
My pleasure.
Our guest, as he has been for the past 6 weeks, maybe 8 weeks?
Probably 8 now.
Probably 8, yeah. We're working on 8. Has been State Senator Mark Messmer representing you. You can contact the senator throughout the summer or anytime you have ideas. He is, or just watch for him in a parade. He'll be playing the horn.
That's right. Hard to miss.
That's right. Thank you very much, Senator.
You're welcome. Great to be
Thank
here.
you for watching 18 WJTS. We are local people watching local people.